Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. As you doubtless know, the most controversial document in America remains totally mysterious. It's only 4 pages long. It is classified. That means while many are talking about it, and they are, virtually nobody has actually read it. It's a memo. It's prepared by the House Intelligence Committee, and apparently it describes surveillance of American citizens in this country by our own intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Several Republicans who have seen the document say it exposes massive and terrifying abuses of our civil liberties, presumably committed for political gain. They say the memo shows how the Obama administration used the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act not to protect this country from foreign threats like terror, which is its purpose, but to spy on rival campaigns, the Trump campaign in particular, and to create a pretext for the current independent counsel investigation, the one that has mesmerized our political class and all but paralyzed our government. It's going on over a year. Even today, the president was responding to questions about it. Watch.
One more quick one. Do you believe Robert Mueller?
I only repeat for the purposes of making sure you understand.
One more quick one. Do you think Robert Mueller will be fair to you in this larger investigation?
We're going to find out.
We're going to
Are you concerned about it?
Because here's what we'll say, and everybody says, no collusion. There's no collusion. Now they're saying, oh, well, did he fight back? If you fight back, you say obstruction.
Sir,
you fight back, John. You fight back. Oh, it's obstruction. So here's the thing. I hope so.
So how do you define collusion? And Maggie asked this earlier during the briefing to Sarah, but how do you...
You're going to define it for me, okay? But I can tell you, there's no collusion. I couldn't have cared less about Russians having to do with my campaign.
It's all we talk about in Washington, pretty much. So if it turns out that this whole investigation is a politically motivated sham, that'll be newsworthy. In the words of one sitting member of Congress, quote, when this memo comes out, people will go to jail. Now, those are strong words. Is the memo that damning? Honestly, we don't know. We have no idea. Like pretty much everyone else in Washington, we haven't read a single word of it. But we certainly take the idea seriously, and why wouldn't we? The most destabilizing thing any government can do is use law enforcement as a political weapon. That's when the police become the secret police, and suddenly you're no longer living in a free country. It happens all the time in other places. Our founders were worried about that happening here, and the rest of us ought to be worried too. A rogue FBI is a far bigger threat to you and your family than any buffoonish tweet from the Oval Office. It actually matters. It could wreck everything we've built here. So this is not a story we ought to ignore. The public deserves to know, needs to know what's in that memo. This is our government. We have a right to know if it's representing us or if it's lying to our faces. If there's corruption, expose that corruption. Transparency is the only antidote. Now, you'd think everyone would agree with that sentiment. Pretty commonplace. And by the way, when you think about it, what exactly is the counter-argument against that? Secrecy is good? People shouldn't know if their government is corrupt? More darkness and deception, please. Even in Washington, you can't say those things out loud, though many would like to, trust me. So instead, Democrats on the Hill and their many handmaidens in the media have a new argument. You're not allowed to know what's in that memo because Russia. Seriously, that is the case they are now making, as of yesterday. Senator Dianne Feinstein and Congressman Adam Schiff, Democrats both from the state of California, are warning that if you want to read that document, that memo, which, by the way, was prepared by the U.S. government for American lawmakers, you are somehow in league with the Vladimir Putin regime. Yesterday, those two sent a letter to the CEOs of Facebook and Twitter claiming that calls to release the memo are, quote, an ongoing attack by the Russian government through Kremlin-linked social media actors directly acting to intervene and influence our democratic process, end quote. Got that? Anyone asking for more transparency from this government, and that would include elected members of Congress and this show, among others, anyone who's doing that is participating in a foreign propaganda campaign that hurts America. In other words, they're traitors. The implication of Schiff and Feinstein's letter is that Twitter and Facebook ought to do something to help, by the way, quickly. Like, I don't know, censor the accounts of anyone who wants to see the memo. You'd think the media might have a big problem with all of this. For centuries, the American press has fought efforts by politicians and those in power to hide unflattering information about themselves. That was noble work. It's the reason that the press is mentioned in the First Amendment. But they're not doing that anymore. On television today, you heard famous anchors make the opposite case. They suggested that calls to release the memo are simply tactics by right-wing crazies and Vladimir Putin to undermine America because they're unpatriotic. And that's when you knew it was over, the long and worthy tradition of journalists as watchdogs, holding the powerful to account. Turns out the journalists have switched teams. They're with the powerful now. They'd like you to shut the hell up.